Assalamu alaikum, I'm Abdul Haseeb, and today I'll be sharing with you the truth of 21st century. Unembarrassingly, we know very little about this planet. Unembarrassingly, we know very little. And as history has progressed, we have come to know even lesser and lesser. As history has progressed, we have been relying on the expertise of others for almost all of our needs. And we come to think that we know a lot. We have most of our information. Even though individually we do not have that much, we have very little information. Very little. Just a tiny fragment of it. Even we don't know who lived in our house about 10, 14 years ago. Who were the first owners or who were the builders of your very house? Do you know that? And if you know that, it's still little. It is still little. Individually, we know very little about it. But what makes us think that we know a lot, what motivates us that we have all the information, because we think that the knowledge, we treat that knowledge which another person owns, the knowledge that rests in someone else's mind. Someone else is the owner of that piece of information. We treat it as our own property. That is why we think that we are very knowledgeable. But that is not the truth. And for the truth, you need to start wasting time. Now, you might take some attention in it because for once, this is something that you might be passionate about. Okay, if you cannot afford to waste time, you cannot find the truth. You cannot. If you're doing everything, any subject, if you want to go deeply into it, you need a lot of time. And in particular, you need to waste time. In particular, you need to waste time to explore the dead ends, to experiment with the unproductive paths, to give space for the doubts, for the mistakes, for any misunderstandings, to give space to them. Just, even to sow the seed of insight so that it can slowly grow and then blossom up. Slow. Even though, that's the truth over here. But the world is full of fake people, is full of fake news, full of fake stories, full of fake rumors. If, let's say, 1,000 people, they start to believe in some story for 1 month, that is fake news. That is fake news. But if a billion people, they believe in that same story for about, you can say 1,000 or 10,000 years, that is religion. That is religion. And we are admonished to call it fake news because we cannot hurt their sentiments, their feelings. We cannot call it fake news. And we have to go with it. And for that reason, for better or worse, fiction is one of the most valuable, most effective tools humankind has in its toolkit. Most effective. As these religious creeds, as they form, they bring large-scale commercial, or whatever you can say, large-scale human population together, to cooperate together. It is that fake news. It is that fake news, which was responsible for it. And speaking of fiction, there are stories made up. Now, we can, for example, see the commercial firms. They keep on telling the same story. Like brands. They're advertising, they keep on telling the same story, just the camera is at a different angle. Or the actors, they have changed. The story is the same until the people are convinced that this is the truth. This is correct. Uh, when I say Coca Cola, a black soft drink, chilled, comes into your mind. Young people drinking it, playing sports, and enjoying. That comes to your mind. But in particular, does it ever knock over head that there are, diabetes patients lying on the beds in the hospitals? And the ingredients included in this are a major cause. Did it ever knock over here? That's because we have been convinced that the truth is that young people are enjoying, they're drinking it, they're playing sports and having fun. Major slogan has been given to it. And perhaps in the 21st century, the most artistic genre is science fiction. The most artistic genre. It is science fiction. And science fiction is failing because it is attempting to confuse intelligence with consciousness. Perhaps that's the reason why it's failing. Not completely, but partially. Partially, it's failing to completely immerse itself into people's mind because it is confusing intelligence with consciousness. And we can come back to that later. Now, science fiction, it has become a major part of education. What you teach kids today most of that won't be relevant by 2050. It won't be relevant. Most of that. And the very last thing a teacher must do is give more and more information to the kids. That's the last thing to do because they have far more already in their possession. Far more than. Now the requirements have changed. The era has changed, so have the requirements, so have the interests, so have the stories, so have the newses. They've changed. Now, since the requirements have changed, information isn't the requirement. I mean, there is basic information as a requirement, but does that information make sense to you? The ability to make sense out of any information you possess is the requirement of this era. Any information. And above all, the most important thing is that you combine all bits of different pieces of information to give a broad picture of this world. Because this world is a story. It's an unending climax. It won't end. Because when you tell the story to the people, what do you want? You want people to believe in your story. You want people to trust you. If you want to make people to really believe in your fiction, because a story is a fiction, and it depends upon you, how you convince them that it is the truth. So if you really want to make people believe in the fiction, entice them to sacrifice something on its behalf. And we're always having a vision to sacrifice something from the other person's wallet. It's because humans, they're just unendingly concerned about their desires. They want their desires to shape the world, and the world goes according to their desires. That's what they want. But what they do not understand that in this era, the requirement is to understand your values, to understand your concepts, to understand your choices, your desires. Rather than just, relying on some fantasy, another story that pops up in your head. Rather than relying on it, we need to understand it. Constantly, the world is changing. This is a fact. Everything is changing constantly. There is, no enduring essence of anything, and no one is satisfied. These are three major factors. But suffering is something we all are diagnosed with. And why is that? Because we are not appreciating that these three factors are the truth. We consider them as wisdom stories, long ago ancient stories. But this is the real truth. And the philosophers, they have been yelling for a millennia now that why the suffering is coming. It's coming from the patterns of your own mind. It's right in here, and you control it. When I want something and I want something to happen, and it does not. The things don't go always as you want. There's always an unexpected turn. And that unexpected turn creates a reaction. Your mind reacts. Although suffering is not an objective condition in the outside world, it's not an objective condition in the outside world. It's mental reaction. And this is something we need to learn. That it's a mental reaction and it's not an objective condition. We need to learn this. Because this is what defines meditation, which is its cure. How we are going to escape from suffering is meditation. But meditation is not something that makes you escape from reality. In fact, meditation itself touches reality, manifests reality itself. Through the motivation, through the commitment, through the clarity that meditation offers, suffering cannot be, avoided if you're not meditating. And since this practice needs to be done, it's especially more special to practice when you need to understand your own mind. It's not that you're unconscious and you have gone inside your body and you're just watching the organs doing their work and your mind, your cerebrum, your cerebellum, your medulla oblongata. Nothing like that. It's just this that consciousness itself is the biggest mystery, the greatest mystery in this universe. Thank you.